Livestream. Welcome, Peter.
Hello, and thanks again for having me. I've really got to come up with a better catchphrase.
It's we'll do our traditional thing. It's a lovely sunny day here, 16 degrees. How's it in your part of the world?
Well, if it's sunny there, it means it's raining here, and it's cold. I have to go put my hoodie on. It's that cold. And I think we're in for some bad rain apparently over the next few days. So stay tuned.
Yeah, excellent. Well, we've got a long weekend coming up, so hopefully the weather's going to hold.
There's a long weekend over here as well, by the way, but only in Melbourne.
So what are we going to talk about today, Peter?
Dynamic forms. So this is one of those things that we've been excited about for a while, and I've wanted to see it, and you've gone and played with it, which is great. So I'm looking forward to actually seeing what you've cooked up, because I haven't seen it yet. So,
well, this is the whole thing about a live demo is I haven't cooked up anything. We're gonna go on this journey together. So I guess inspired by our live demo we did last week, we're having a guest come on and do a live demo. We thought we'd give it a shot ourselves, driving through the application. So I figured we would start from the beginning and understand what's the process to take an existing object / page layout through the journey and just see what we can build.
Sounds like a good plan.
Cool. So let us bring up a standard Salesforce homepage. So there are some limitations to this feature. And so for now, this is only available for custom objects. So counts, opportunities, standard objects, the ones that I guess have some built-in quirks to them are currently excluded from this. But
that's a bummer. Would that be on the roadmap? I would hope it would be.
It is on the roadmap for Spring 21.
Right, so next release. Is that next release? Yeah, it is.
I think a beta of it, yeah. So
okay.
Clearly something they're working on, but there's certain fields that have different characteristics to them. I'm thinking opportunity stage, case status, those kinds of fields where you'd probably just need a slightly different way of thinking about how you force those fields onto a page layout, perhaps, once you're in this dynamic world.
So it's interesting, because we've talked about this being, a potential replacement or adjunct, I would say, to record types. You don't tend to sort of use record types really on custom objects. That's more, well, it tends to be anyway on the standard objects. So, but still.
Yep. So you can see my screen, Peter.
I can.
Cool. Let's jump in. This is an org that I use for completing trailheads. So it's got a whole bunch of stuff, random stuff in there of different trailhead projects. So for this, what I thought we'd use, I've got a custom object here called, let me get to the right window, called RFP. So what I'm going to do is jump into a record and then just go to our standard edit page. So this takes us into the Lightning App Builder. And so what we're going to do is when we click, as I understand it, if I click on this record detail section, I'm going to get this new kind of prompt up the top right here, which is asking me, do I want to basically upgrade this object to use dynamic forms? So that's a step that you'd have to go through on any object that you wanted to kind of go down this path with. So let's see what this takes us through. So we're going to upgrade. So what do we got here? A little bit of information about why you would want to use dynamic forms, break up monolithic block of record details into more manageable and customizable chunks. So that's the benefits that we've heard about. Put fields and sections anywhere on the page. So we'll dig into that a little bit more. Sections, arrange fields directly in the app builder, which is great. Like the whole thing of coming in here and then jumping off to a page layout
Yeah.
the traditional editor from the last 20 years to edit stuff and then come back. So this just makes administration a lot easier.
So replacing the need to actually go into Classic to do that page.
Absolutely. Yep.
Good.
So it's
good.
all
One step closer.
We'll see how we go. It should all be in one place. So let's go next. Okay, so the first thing it's going to do is ask us, do we want to basically use the existing page layout as a starting point, or to arrange the new dynamic form? So looks like this is mandatory to have some kind of a starting point. So I'll select that layout and go finish. Cool, so what we can see here now is we've got this top level that's the accordion component, which what it's done is I think it's broken what would be sections in the page layout using the accordion, and then put field sections inside. So here you've got additional info. If I expand that out, so then that has had a field section put inside that, which is the new component, and then columns of fields inside that. So that's, I guess, a way of creating that kind of hierarchy. So let's do the most simple thing we could do to start with. Let's just move the status field over here. Done. How easy is that? So again, this is proving that point that we don't have to jump into the page layout editor in order to we can do everything in one place.
Yep.
Which is quite good. And what's going to happen if there's a little pencil icon, but it doesn't seem to do anything. Obviously, we wanted to delete a field. Could just hit the little trash can and it's gone. Now, if you want to add a new field, there's this new field next to component. Come over here to fields, and that's where all of your fields for the object show up. I haven't seen this populated before, but it's obviously doing some smarts to determine what are the fields that are always required. So that kind of essentially puts them first. Just handy, I guess. And so maybe if we take that location field that I just deleted, we could very easily drag that back on. So maybe just as a start, we'll save this. We'll then activate it. And let's just jump back into the record. Make that the org default. Lots of clicking. So in theory, that is now our active page layout. And if we go back, what are we going to see? Cool. So now we've got that page layout with the accordion, and we've moved from record detail from a standard page layout to the new dynamic forms. So I guess as a like-for-like replacement, that in itself is a much better user experience to what we're used to.
So it's not very clear on my side. So so it's just breaking up the fields into different parts on the page, or is it looking to the answer on?
So when it had imported the page layout, it's taken the different sections of the page layout and then embed those inside an accordion component, so another standard component.
Right.
And so that's why between these two, we get these two different sections that we can accordion open.
Okay.
Now, whether that's useful for people, if not, they could just drag that field section back up and have it all in one block. So maybe if we jump back into the page editor again and kind of see what else we can do. have any use cases that you want to explore, Peter? What are you wondering about?
So I thought it was going to be sort of like a dependent pick list, but not with a pick list on it. I answered this, then I'm going to see these fields. If I don't, yeah, at that level, that's what I was expecting to see.
So I don't think it's quite to that dynamic level, but if we click on just an individual field here, this is kind of the behavior we see on the side. So you've got your standard kind of UI level behavior like we had in page layouts before. So we can define this field as being read only on the page layout, but obviously writable at the database level through permissions.
Yep.
And we can define something as required, again, just on the page layout at that level. So that's, I guess, we had that functionality before. What we have now at a field level is this field visibility, which is applicable across any Lightning component. I think this field visibility this visibility filters applies. So what could we do here is say I want to add a filter where maybe status equals RFP open. Maybe we can test that as a starting point. Okay, so we see a little orange icon on that now. So maybe we jump back to the UI and see how that behaves now. Okay. I think we're all done there. Okay, so the status on this is RFP open. Maybe if we now change that. Interesting, so you get a warning that a field has been removed from the record. Okay, and then so before save, you get alerted that that's going to change. That's interesting. So if I change that back, the following fields were added. Okay, so that can almost guide a user through trying to think how this would play out. You've got a bunch of fields that are related to a particular status, perhaps. And I always think of cases when I think of these kind of scenarios where you're going through a workflow, a path of statuses. So you're obviously going to get a warning saying, hey, these 5 fields are being added to the layout, and you've got the opportunity now to fill those out as the next stage in the process. So I think going back to your original question, it's not like a dependent pick list and that the options are going to change in real time on the page, but it's more at that point that you go to save. Let me just check that. So if I change that again, go back to, no, it's sort of halfway in between. So I haven't clicked the save button yet and I'm getting the warning. And then save and it carries on. So it did disappear before I click save, but you sort of had the ability to cancel out.
It's also, it's calling it out. So our initial thoughts was, there may be an opportunity to minimize the use of record types and various page layouts, because that's really how we've used those over the years, that I need to see these certain fields, so I can need a particular record type for it. So this should achieve that, because it's removing the need for a record type around those use cases, and acting in a particular, almost the same way, basically, but in real time, more on the page once you hit save. So okay.
So let's just jump back in again, and one of the things I wanted to test was, before everything was contained within the record detail section, So now, can we have fields across multiple places, as an example? So maybe you've got your subtabs here, but maybe over here on the right, you just always want, almost like the highlights panel, you always want 3 fields displaying because they're always relevant. So let's see if we can do something like that. So what I might do is drag a field section over here. So that's good. I might make this 1 column. And maybe we just always want to know the RFP name and the owner.
Now, what I'd like to see, yes, you can.
Yeah, so those fields are replicated across more than one location.
And you can lock them down to be read-only as well there, or open them up. So
that's a good question. So can I make it read-only here, but over here it's required? So yeah, interesting. I'm not sure how that's going to behave, so let's make that active.
And by the way, folks, this is how we learn Salesforce. Let's see if this works.
Experimentation is the best thing.
It's the only way.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. So we've got our RFP name here, over here. Oh, this is where I made it read-only, I thought.
On the right-hand side there, yeah?
Yeah. So that still seems to be letting me type something. And then...
Well, yeah, try and type something and see what happens on save.
That's what I'm thinking. Wow, interesting. They both... You saw how quickly they're kind of both updated. But yeah, that read-only nature of this one was perhaps over... Not sure. So that didn't quite go as expected. But yeah, you can see how now you've got a whole lot of flexibility. One of the things I've always wanted to do with page layouts, which this would enable to do, is rather than having sections going down a page layout as you always traditionally did, actually have them as tabs going across here. So you could have a tab, finance details related to this RFP, and just have all the fields that are relevant to that in one place. And maybe, you don't necessarily have to do this sort of visibility show hide, but you're sort of guiding someone through a process from left to right based on the fields that are relevant, at a different stage, have them available as a tab together perhaps. So different options there in terms of how you might arrange things and think about user experiences going forward.
I have done something very similar to that on an opportunity where in a separate tab you had fields pulling in from the related objects, the account and that type of stuff. And you could actually, rather than having to go off to the account record to update the account name, for example, you could actually do that within that tab itself. So that was pretty cool.
So yeah, we can see we're getting a lot more flexibility into what we could do here. And just an example, let's try the example I just gave. Maybe I add a new tab and call it more details. And so then just within that tab, I can come and say, well, I want 3 more fields. Okay, that's interesting. A field has to live within a field section, so it won't let me drag that on. So I need to drag a field section on first. Choose the number of columns I want. Now here's where you could just set that component visibility at a section level, so you wouldn't have to do it individually across 10 fields. You could just say this whole section only displays when these conditions are met.
Yep.
So maybe if we just jump product type in there. So now we can see we're starting to break fields out over multiple tabs, different options around some fields always displaying, and different ways that you can use visibility to kind of show and hide and create a user experience. So all in all, I think this is heading in the right direction. As you pointed out at the beginning, getting this on standard objects is going to be the real winner.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's, as you said, I can think of a whole heap of use cases around cases, opportunities. They're the ones that you'd be doing it a lot. So I would think so anyway. Cool. Now, we did have some questions, but I think we may have actually answered those through the demo. Yeah. I don't think we've got any other questions. Cool. We've been way too efficient in this live stream.
Let's just see what those latest changes I made look like when we activate them, and then we can wrap this up. So now you can see I've got that more details and the ability. Doesn't seem to like that. So all in all, this is a slick new feature that I guess the message would be, get your custom objects onto this approach and save yourself jumping into Classic to edit page layouts, basically. More to do, as we've kind of pointed out, but this is a pretty solid start.
It's by more reason to be in Lightning and out of Classic, isn't it? So
yeah, or even just that, the way it presented, you were still in Lightning, but it was clearly like the old Classic subbed in. This just puts us in a much better place to do page layout editing.
It's good. One step closer.
Well, on that note, Peter, I think we're going to call this live demo a success, wrap it up slightly shorter than our usual conversation, and let people go and start creating their dynamic form layouts.
And just to clarify, this is generally available now. It's out there in the wild.
It's the Winter 21 release, isn't it? It's the name of the most recent release. So I believe it, and it's one of the features we've talked about in our previous showcase of all the new features, and one of the ones we were most excited about. So we'll see. Maybe next week we'll pick another Winter 21 feature and do another mini deep dive and see what it's like in the real world.
Sounds good.
In the meantime, happy page layout editing, everyone.
Have fun, everybody.
Cheers.